in this video we'll be talking about creating new schedules. In the mechanical productivity pack, I forget the exact number now, it's somewhere 150 plus. I'd like to think we have 98% of the cases of equipment out there covered, but I'm sure there's more. So you guys may have to create more schedules. We'd be open to feedback on if there's schedules that aren't here. We can create them for you and get them added and send that to you. So that's an option as well. Here's the process we went through for creating new schedules to make sure that every schedule had the same look, function, and feel. They all were cut from this M Master Mechanical Equipment schedule. So we could duplicate this schedule. We could give it a name. So if it's mechanical equipment families, we're putting equipment, and then we're calling out what it is. So let's make a water-to-water heat pump schedule. So we do already have a schedule of this, so this is really just purely for the purpose of the video. So I guess a water-to-water heat pump, that would actually be an MP schedule. All right, so it's going to take some getting used to this master file, but once you know the sequence of the shared parameters, it's real easy to set up. So I'm going to edit the fields here. Okay, that opened up now. That does take a little bit to open up, so just be aware of that. All right, so water-to-water heat pump. So we have no duct connections or airside information. So from equipment arrangement, I might leave those, but I'm going to eliminate all this outlet, airflow, supply air. We're not going to have a pump, and we're not going to have fans or motors. We have a compressor motor, of course, but not these types of motors. So no secondary fan. So essentially we can just select all of that and remove. So equipment total cooling capacity is used when you have multiple cooling components. For the water-to-water heat pump, we won't have that. And we're not going to have energy recovery. However, we will have this equipment has cooling heat exchanger. And now we're just going to remove the airside parameters that are used in the energy recovery wheel. So that would be those ones. And let's keep going down here. So rejection heat exchanger now, we're not going to have any airflow type. We're not going to have any cooling coils, so we're going to go all the way down to this equipment has rejection heat exchanger. So that essentially is our condenser in cooling mode. Remove all that. Okay, so here's our condenser heat exchanger, rejection heat exchanger. And we've got our plant information, so no economizer coil. We may have that, I guess, but I'm going to remove it for the purpose of this demo. Preheat coil. All right, so now we're down to equipment has heating heat exchanger. So this is used for when the water-to-water heat pump switches modes and it's in heating mode, and now the evaporator is creating heating water for the building. So we don't have any airflow properties for the energy recovery wheel. We'll remove that. And you know, some of these parameters are kind of used here and there, like recovery water flow, that's used for water heaters, and this water temperature difference, we don't need that one. So there may be some parameters here and there you'll find out you don't need, and you can clean those up over time. You know, some of these super detailed information like heating heat exchanger width, height, and depth, by all means remove those. You're likely, if ever, going to be scheduling those. So really you just have to leave the information that you're going to schedule. So absorbing heat exchanger, this would be for the energy recovery wheel, the air side, so we'll get rid of that. We don't have heating coils. What we do have is an absorbing heat exchanger. So this would be, sorry, I said that wrong previously. This one is the evaporator heat exchanger in heating mode. The heating heat exchanger would be the condenser heat exchanger. So absorbing heat exchanger, we can leave electric heat or not. I'm going to get rid of it. No gas-fired heat exchanger. And we'll leave the heating plant info. And no rejection coil, so we can remove all this stuff. No auxiliary fans. And then we do have compressors. So I'll leave that. Some of these parameters were set up for VRF equipment, so like some of these piping lengths, so we could remove those. There's not going to be a low ambient kit because it's an indoor unit. So we could get our efficiencies in here, so we can remove what we don't need. So full load amp, COP, let's leave those. So when I set up the schedules, I looked at ASHRAE 90.1 and kept basically the efficiency units that they were using for a given piece of equipment. So we don't have any thermal combustion efficiency or standby losses. And now we get into some hood information and louvers, sound attenuators, this information you could choose to leave or remove depending upon the type of schedule. A lot of the schedules have this information if it's like air handling equipment. However, if you just wanted to schedule sound pressure at low, medium, and high, you could just do that as well. So no pre-filters or filters. I generally kept equipment length, width, and height in all the schedules, as that is the main flexing parameters of our families. We won't have any curb information, so let's remove that. And then the rest is electrical. So if it has an electrical connector, all these parameters basically remained. All right, so let's hit OK. We're just going to be left with hiding some columns that we don't want. So the schedule appears on is how the schedules are filtered, this value. So lots of these parameters are in place for filtering, but they're not shown in the schedule. So we're going to hide this, and then we'll hide description, and I'm going to hide those. Serial number and quantity and all this type of stuff you could hide or remove. I'm just going to hide them for the sake of discussion. All right, we don't need these showing. So refrigerant properties are pretty much hidden in all the schedules. Rarely will you see those. Calculated values are in the schedules as parameters that are tied to connectors. However, they're usually not shown. So we'll hide that. So cooling capacity, if you needed to override units, you could format and say, no, we want this to be in tons, maybe 1 decimal place. And now we've got, so here's our load chilled water. So this looks like the old description for the airside energy recovery wheel. So we could say evaporator heat exchanger. And fouling factor, surface area, you can schedule those if you want to. We'll hide that. And now we're to the rejection side of the cooling mode. We'll hide the refrigerant stuff and the calculated stuff. So here's our heat rejection condenser. Entering, leaving, pressure drop, volume, maybe. So let's hide this stuff now. However, we do want to show our glycol information. So there's our type and percentage. Okay, and now in the heating mode operation, you can set this up. So condenser, heat exchanger. So we already scheduled pressure drop and volume in the cooling mode operation. So I'm just going to hide these. And minimum flow, I don't think we'll need to show either. And we'll hide these. And once again, pressure drop and volume, we've already scheduled elsewhere. So the heating plant, we'll show that. And now we're just left with the compressor information. So maybe I'll leave type to schedule what type of compressor, and refrigerant type and charge. I'm going to hide circuit quantity, unloading steps and stages I'll hide. And then we probably just want quantity. And power maybe. Actually, let's schedule quantity and running load amps. Hot gas pipe. So, if there's stuff here that you don't want, instead of hiding, you can just delete. So these don't apply for the water side systems. So I'm just going to remove those. And then we're left with our efficiencies. So sound pressure now. So then a lot of this ends up getting hidden, and we're just using unit weight. And then we're to electrical information. So all the schedules by default, they have FLA, MCA, MOCP, and then voltage and phase. And the rest of this can be hidden. There's not going to be any interlock, so we'll hide that. And then you're just left with giving it a name. And I'm typing where we can't see it, but water to water heat pump schedule. And let's, place it and take a look. So we'll close that. So here's the one we just created. And there you go. So, I don't know, that took a little bit of time. So now imagine doing that like 150 times, and then you'll be where I'm at. But some of the columns could be tightened up here to try to get it to fit on a given page. If you've got a bigger title block size, though, for a given project, then you're pretty much done. So I guess I hope you guys understand why, you'll see some groupings like this. It's because there was other parameters like design and minimum flow, and now we don't have that condition. So really some of these where there's multiple groups and it looks kind of weird, you could just ungroup that and then just say design flow here. And then, probably same thing, we'll hide minimum flow. And same thing here, we'll hide that. We'll ungroup this and we'll say design flow. So that's more or less how all the schedules are made. So you can rest assured that from schedule to schedule, the parameters are in the same sequence. They're grouped, they're named, they're sorted, all the same. Hopefully you like how they're sorted or grouped. Otherwise, you have a lot of fixing to do. On any note, thanks.